Here we are, dotfmp in Berlin.
Hello.
Video for the first time.
Yep.
So, tell us a little bit about yourself and what changes you've had in your life lately.
Hi, I'm Jakov Milovanovic. I have been a developer for the last 9 to 10 years. It becomes a bit difficult
So
to
you're
track.
new.
Relatively. I mean, for this industry and platform, I'm quite new. So I've come to dotfmp to catch up a bit and see what everyone has been researching and developing. Because if you want to find out the latest and greatest, dotfmp is the right place for it.
Yeah, it's very technical. What are the big things you've seen so far?
So far, I've seen that there's a big trend going towards AI, I would say.
What's
and
that?
Also,
I mean, this is
Ask
Claire's Talk AI.
ChatGPT.
Yeah, no, I'm kidding. This is Claire's Talk AI, so that's definitely what we're all about.
Yeah, for sure. But there's been a big push for that, and there's been a big push towards conversations about how to actually implement it business-wise. It's not all about the technology itself, but you have to find a way to sell it to the clients, to kind of market the advantages that it brings.
Yeah, utility, not just
Also
technical.
I think there's a big push towards extending the capabilities. So what Cris is doing with Studio, I think has pushed many people into also looking for alternatives. So
Well, did you see the Car Studio presentation of what's coming?
I did, and it's great.
It blew my mind. I'm actually really excited about it.
It's quite good, but I just say that people are still finding ways,
Right.
like developing React builders. I mean, I've
Definitely.
seen a guy here who literally built an entire
Yeah,
front-end builder.
I missed that
with-
yesterday, but I heard it was amazing.
It was amazing.
Yeah.
I mean, it's quite interesting.
Yeah.
And
Do you remember what that is? We can look it up.
I forgot the name. It's on the site, on the .fmp.
Oh yeah, we'll post a
Web,
link
I
in the
think
show notes.
WebZip or something like that.
Oh, something Zeppelin.
Yeah. But
Yeah.
I mean, it's amazing. And it's amazing that you can now do that with all the support that you get from the new steps like perform script on server with a callback. With
I
the
know.
State options.
Yeah, with the new options, right? And
Yeah.
Beezwax,
So
yeah.
it's great. It's been good.
The thing that I talked a little bit about Studio actually, because that presentation really blew my mind. So from the beginning, what I've really wanted is like a custom layout.
I missed actually that presentation.
Oh, it was something.
I've heard from the people
Yeah.
here, but I missed.
Yeah,
I
it
know
was.
people were super impressed. So one of the guys told me about it, and it did seem quite interesting.
Yeah, it's an unreleased stuff, but it was really working quite well. Like basically a custom type of a layout where you can put in whatever elements you want in frames and really code it. So you can show relational data, you can have a picker, you can get data from different sources, you can have
So you're
all
not
the
locked
all the
into templates essentially.
No, you're not locked into templates, but all the little elements that they've been building that I haven't been excited about, like Kanban and charts and things like that, can now be integrated in like a little part of the frame, or not. You can just make like a, like a selector.
That's big actually.
I think
It's
it
big
is.
because it allows for much more flexibility, which
Yeah.
makes it way more usable.
Yeah, as a dashboard, I think this is going to be finally something really, really powerful. And like all the other little areas of it.
Well, it's already, I think, from what I've heard from the feedback, I think it's already a good tool for data gathering, for an example, in a way,
Yeah, I don't
for
know.
basic stuff.
Maybe, but I've actually put it into production a while ago, but I haven't. It seems like it's been completely stagnant for a year or so, and this really
that happened with File,
changes
but
that.
that happened with Connect, if you remember as well.
That's true.
When Connect came out, it was first pricey as hell,
Right.
and then I
Yeah.
remember, for an example, when we were on polls on error, people were literally going to
Yeah.
Douglas and just saying
Yep.
like, what's going on with it.
Yeah,
There's no
yeah.
updates. And
Yeah,
it's
now
pricey.
we have custom connectors and some other things, and Connect actually is
But
really
Connect,
useful.
yeah, but he did say, Connect was essentially trapped by Apple, I think, for a certain amount of time in development.
Oh yeah.
And once they pushed it out, it was amazing. The pricing model changed, the features changed. Connect
Yeah.
is quite good now, I would say.
Yeah, I have a couple things in production. Mostly what I love about it, I'm getting the framing bad here, is reaching back into FileMaker. It seems like it's the easiest way to reach into FileMaker and update data, run a script, do things like that.
Yeah,
But
it's
if
convenient.
you're
It's a
just
way.
doing something to go out, like send a mail with SendGrid or something like that, I think it's kind of easier to do the traditional. But if you've got the whole circle and you've got a bunch of different things,
and also people are quite used to doing it in the traditional way. It's when the data API initially came, you had a lot of people who were pushing like limits, figured out that you can use it to replace SQL. There's a lot of interesting things. For an example, you could, I know Wim de Kort made an article, for an example, about asynchronous programming, and that heavily depended on the admin console API and the data API.
Yeah.
But of course, if you would go to most of the developers at the time when the data API just came out, it wasn't at first the big,
Right. Yeah. But then it
now
certainly
everyone
became
uses it for everything essentially.
Yep, that's true. The other sort of pivot that I think I've seen is Clara Studio doesn't really have a scripting language. It's really not. That's what it's about.
Yeah, it's.
But Connect is a scripting language, and it's becoming more of that. So I'm thinking kind of we're seeing like your backend data could either be the native web data that you get with Studio, or a FileMaker.
Okay.
Well, I guess you have FileMaker connect to that data source.
Yeah.
The other way around, and then Connect becomes your scripting language that can do all the work between those sources.
Oh, that's
so that basically sort of it's and I didn't really think about it that way, but that's really makes sense.
When you're actually talking about it, that does make sense.
Yeah, because all the triggers you get from Studio and from FileMaker can trigger things into Connect.
Yes, and then you can just work
and push data either way. Yeah, or to any other source, right? To Slack or whatever. Yeah, so
that is great. Also,
I think that's going to evolve.
Have you seen what Christian has been doing with MBS?
He's always on fire.
You can't keep track.
I haven't seen new things with it, but yeah, it's so much. There's like 15 million features in there.
He's constantly adding stuff, so MBS is amazing.
Yeah.
What else has been interesting, for example?
I have to confess something. My arm is getting really tired holding this phone.
We can end it here, and people should also take a look, research a bit and see what happened as well.
Yeah, definitely. Well, thanks very much for talking to me.
No, thanks for having me. So.
I wanted to ask you more questions, even though we stopped. So you were talking to me about your work lately in FileMaker and tracking manufacturing of supercars. Very sexy.
Yeah, so I have recently switched, or at least moved positions from. I worked for Smolco for a number of for a long time.
Love that company.
Smolco essentially brought me up in a way, and some of the best FileMaker developers and people that I've met through my career.
Yeah.
I still deeply love all of them. But I recently moved to another company. Also amazing people, amazing developers. And you know how with time, when you work at a certain place for a long time, you kind of see the same clients.
Sure.
So this has been also a great opportunity for me to see other industries and how they implement FileMaker. So for an example, who would have guessed that supercars can be, that you can track the development process of supercars using a tool like FileMaker?
Yeah.
Because we're talking about relatively big companies with big budgets.
Yeah.
With a lot of complex projects.
Yeah, very complex projects.
An average car has somewhere between, I think, 16 and 20,000 parts that need to be tested, developed, and of course a lot of them are moved from one place from one model of a car to another.
Right.
But the thing is, a lot of them are not.
Right. Yeah. Or upgraded versions, or just completely new parts.
Yeah. So for an example, there's algorithmic testing of the fatigue of each part. So it's super exciting to get into, and also some of the newer features from FileMaker really enable the entire ecosystem to work.
Interesting. Like what things are you using that are new?
So for an example, one of the things that's been heavily used, and that's maybe not from the latest version, but for example, the changes that were done to JavaScript, like the ability to perform JavaScript is something that
as a script
really,
step.
it can really help you with crunching large amounts of data on the spot. But yes, there's some really great things to do visually with it, with the web viewer, but also JavaScript is super fast compared to some of the stuff. So if you can use the data API, for an example, to pull in the data, and then you can use JavaScript to crunch it, it really opens up a whole new world of possibilities. In essence.
For sure.
Combine that with a plugin like NBS for an
Yeah.
example.
Which we talked about a minute ago.
Yeah, which just extends that ability. So at that moment, you literally have the ability to grab the data with the data API. You have the ability to grab the data with the plugin. Not to mention, you could grab the data natively with the data API and insert the data via the plugin. Transactions have been a major
Oh, for
thing.
sure.
A major thing. Like, I know that the entire process actually moved immediately to transactions because the data safety that provides is really good. The performance, I mean, in my mind, transactions are like what performs script on server was for scripting. Transactions are for the data part, for inserting records, changing stuff. It's just a game changer in my mind.
Okay.
So I would say that would be it. What else is interesting when it comes to manufacturing cars? Also, there's many different teams. Surprisingly enough, I think manufacturing a single car takes quite a good amount of other industries, other disciplines. So you have designers, you have mechanics,
Sure,
you have
sure.
accountants who worry about the financial side.
Unfortunately.
Yeah, well, that's
Well,
why
I
their
mean,
price
yeah,
is
exactly.
low.
$1.6 million or whatever for some of them, sure.
So,
But it's also got to be so completely different than like, a company, I don't know, like Nissan who makes millions of cars or something. The scale that they have is just completely different.
it is different. I mean, I'm a bit lucky because the clients that I've now had the chance to work with through this development house, they also do have manufacturing of models which are manufactured in series. You know, there's more.
Sure.
There's like bigger numbers of vehicles, but yes, there's of course limited series as well.
Yeah.
And it is different because I think these specific models, there's like a development phase for this is much different because each car could also be drastically different from the previous one.
Yeah.
Where if, let's say, I mean, I haven't seen what, for an example, Volkswagen Group does or Volvo. I know that Volvo used FileMaker at some point.
Yeah, actually, I think I've known people who worked there, and
Oh, really?
yeah, I can't remember. It was a few years ago, but yeah, they had a very, very large set of FileMaker databases
I
running in
didn't
different
know that.
divisions
I
of
mean,
Volvo.
I knew that they used it, but I actually didn't know like in what capacity.
Yeah, I'm not sure what the story is now, but that was very heavily used at the time that I was talking to people.
That's interesting. I know Albert, who was the CEO of the previous company I worked in, was always amazed by the fact that Volvo used FileMaker. That was like one of the biggest. I think he even wanted to try to consult on design for Volvo as
that
well
would
at some
make sense,
point in time.
I'm not surprised at all that very, very large companies use it for divisions. I've seen that in plenty of cases.
I'm not surprised for divisions, but I am surprised
Company-wide?
that it's implemented company-wide, for an example.
That's a surprise.
But the thing is, I think, and what I've heard now, I think consistently the biggest advantage of FileMaker is just the sheer ability to out-develop anything else out on the market. You maybe cannot compete on speed in some cases.
Right.
I mean,
You get
we're
until a
talking
point.
here on a higher level. So, yes, if you optimize FileMaker, yes, it can be super performant even compared to web solutions because you have to also the quality of the developers who make a big difference. But the thing is, when we are talking on a higher level, when we are comparing
Thousands of users
or what seniors, so when seniors are developing with different platforms, yes, FileMaker will definitely not be the most performant option.
I would also submit that when you get to a certain level, FileMaker is extremely fast to develop with, but when you get to the point where you're trying to really get that last 1% and get it up from like 1,000 users to 10,000, it's not as efficient.
It's not.
The development speed, that's where you really, really have to do a lot of work to get to that level.
Yes, but at that point, I mean, if you're getting to that point, you can always try to integrate it with other systems.
Right.
And then make something. So on one side, you can actually expend the time to develop whatever needs more time to be developed. So let's say if you want to do a custom front-end web app, and you can extend the time, but then you can still have the core done in FileMaker and be able to mold and change the core quite rapidly while leaving the front end or a certain aspect of your business in a on a full stack platform,
Yeah.
whatever. And I think that's probably quite a good way to deal with it.
Yeah.
So you then have both the performance and just the sheer capability of building anything with a full stack option, and you still have the rapid development ability with FileMaker.
Right.
So I think that's quite good.
Yeah, positioning. That's a thing.
I mean, of course, when we are talking about these, it really depends on the client's budget and on their capabilities, timelines, the ability to actually even provide you proper scoping. Because yes, you can develop FileMaker rapidly, but there's differences. Does the client have technical support, a technical consultant who can actually take their business practices, prepare them for you as a company to come and take over? Do you need to be that consultant and actually go in, puzzle together with them what their business logic actually is? On top of that, you have to optimize it, because what humans do, design-wise, generally can need optimization.
Yeah. So boy, working at Smallco, you certainly got a good.
Yeah, well,
right up in front of all
Smallco
of
is
this.
one of the, I would say, Smallco is predominantly biased towards design.
Yes.
Which is a super interesting approach, because when you, I think many of the people who deal with FileMaker, like especially the people who come to the conferences, are really techie people. And I'm not saying they're not into design, but I don't think design is the first.
Yeah,
thing that
they're
gets
super.
pushed.
Yeah, everybody has a superpower. And Albert's has always been design.
And while in Smallco, design has always been on the forefront.
And not something you add on later, but actually something that you start with. I love his lessons there. I really take them to heart.
No, the master classes he did are quite good.
They're almost as good as the classes I teach.
Almost as good. But I think you cover different topics.
Yeah, we're
and
very,
have
very different focus.
Different trainees, I would say.
I think there's overlap. I certainly.
No, there is overlap.
Yeah, I certainly strongly spend time on design and quality. In fact, that's actually where I start. I don't start with coding and relationships and things like that. I start with what things you can find from the world. Directly stuff I learned from Albert, honestly.
Yeah, no. I know there's.
What examples out there in the world that you see that you interact with that are joyful, and what things are awful, and how to translate that into building an interface in FileMaker.
No, but that's quite good, because if you do not get past that layer, getting super deep technically, has no point. You will not be able to use it properly.
Yeah, and it won't connect to the user.
There's definitely an overlap, but what I meant, Albert has always been generally just focused on the peak. Like you're supposed to go to Albert when you've already found your clients. I mean, yes, you can go even without that, and you will probably learn a lot. But from my experience, Albert's masterclasses were always more intended for people who already have businesses, who already have, how would I say, development experience to a certain degree. They were, and from what I know at least, you have opened the gates to actually bringing in new people, training in people, and also encouraging people. That's not impossible.
Yeah, definitely. I like that. Cool.
And that's why I say there's a bit of, yes, there's an overlap, but I think it's just you cover different groups when it comes to extremes.
Yeah, definitely. I'm trying to look at like the holistic approach. Like in my class, I try to cover the whole feature set of FileMaker.
Oh, I know that you do a full training and everything.
I'm sure he gets some of that too. Well, I've never actually attended his masterclass, so I can't really talk about it, but I know it's extremely popular and has been for a long time.
Especially in he's been for now a couple of years developing the design rules, I'm not sure. And that's something that I think he presented at a couple of conferences, but I think he's going to kick it off probably in a bigger way in the future, which I think is going to be super interesting, especially to people who already have, for example, failed solutions. So,
Interesting.
I mean, if you want to learn, there's a lot of super nice people like you and Albert who are going to provide, and that's been a big, honestly, that's been a big upgrade. I remember when I first started, you had Matt Petrovsky, who was quite good when it came to training,
and he's still
the
bomb for videos.
He's one of the MVPs of the community.
Yeah, for sure.
And I yes.
The content he
man's a
continues to
living
produce
legend,
just
right?
blows my mind
Yeah.
still. Yeah.
Now you also have, I think, Richard Carlton Consulting. They've been doing FM training videos on YouTube.
Yep. So many of them.
Yeah, so many. But the guests they bring to the I guess training sessions, like you get the chance to learn from Honza, which is, for example, a quite.
Hey, I haven't seen him here.
Me neither. The last time I've seen Honza was, I think, in Malmo
Yeah, I think I saw
2
him there
years
too.
ago.
No, I've seen him since then. But
No,
yeah.
I haven't. I think I've seen him 2 years ago.
Yeah.
I think.
That's a really smart guy. Cool. Well, thanks very much for chatting with you some more.
Thanks for having me again. It's been fun.
Yeah, for sure. Another segment of FileMaker Talk AI. Stathis, kalimera sas.
Good morning, Kalimera.
So my little tiny bit of Greek I get to use. So my fellow Greek citizen.
Yes.
I joke.
Yes.
I'm so not quite yet. But you're in Athens, yes?
No,
Thessaloniki?
I am in Thessaloniki.
Thessaloniki. Yeah, I just remembered that. And I only met you at this conference.
Yep.
And I was at your session the first day, and you are one of the smartest people I've ever seen present.
Thank you.
And I really wanted to take a little bit of time to talk about like what you presented. You showed some JavaScript stuff that just completely blew my mind.
Yeah. So the idea was that there are some things that it's of great value to do in JavaScript, because then those things are easily portable. You can use them dynamically in every solution. And in the presentation, besides that, we also showed like how you can have a nice dev environment and ways that you can iterate those tools, and you can collaborate. So
Yeah,
I
you
think
showed like
that's-
different ways to store it, like where to store the code.
Yeah.
Ways to store it like in a field, or what are some of the other places that are stored, and what do you think is the best place to store the JavaScript code?
It depends on the use case. So as we said in the presentation, in a use case that you simply want like a loading icon, even a custom function like the HTML blob escape, in a custom function would work, because what you want is just a web viewer that spins. So you don't want like any hocus pocus, do that, grab that field or something. So just a custom function will work. If it's something that is layout based, a technique that just grabs the HTML blob from a text object is fine. But if you want something that you want to use it throughout the solution, a table that accommodates this kind of data is like the best approach.
Yeah.
So it really depends on the use case, what storage method one should prefer.
Yeah, for sure. I think you talked also about like really efficient ways to write it, and you really evangelize that you don't have to have a lot of expertise in JavaScript. You just have to have a little bit of a way, and then you can really heavily rely on ChatGPT and Copilot to really do a lot of that work.
So yeah, the problem with ChatGPT is that first of all, it's like a couple of years ago. A year ago or so.
Oh yeah, the age of it. Well, for Omni is, I'm not sure when it cuts off, but
yeah. So I think they updated it like recently. But the machine learning data that is related to FileMaker web viewers outweighs the merge method. So substituting the data with a substitute function, which means that if someone goes with ChatGPT root, they will get a web viewer that flashes frequently. It's not like
right. So it's using kind of the not best practices of modern code got it. So that's just good stuff to know.
Yeah, recent function. So, but if you set it up and you give context to ChatGPT, so this is my setup. So, for example, I demonstrated Vite as a dev environment. So my dev environment is Vite. I'm going to write one JavaScript function that controls everything. So no HTML, just a JavaScript function. This is how it should be constructed. Every function that I want to use outside from that web viewer should be stored in the window global space. So if you give it that context and then say, okay, I now want to do a web viewer that is a checkbox.
Right.
It will do it.
I love that you showed some things that were just really small and really efficient and like much better than you could do in FileMaker. And they weren't like a whole layout, but they were just a little part of it. I'm not sure how many web viewers you can get on a page and have it work, but
one of the quirks is like if you have more than one web viewer that is self-sustainable, the FileMaker scripting stack might get too big if you don't really control how it asks for data. But we have done I have done a layout with more than 10 web viewers, and again the integration method. So is it a merge method? Is it a scripted method? So you script load
script and load and set.
It really depends on the use case. So if you have like 10 web viewers, it might be better to have something like is a merge, like substitute, because then it's you don't have to do something, and it's not going to the stack of the scripts. But those web viewers need to be something very simple, so the HTML is not big, so it doesn't flash, it doesn't take age to load, etc.
You showed also some live updating things, like a web viewer that gets data, and because one of the issues with it for FileMaker developers is it's not really real time. It loads the data, and that's kind of what it is. But you showed some things where if the code changes, it just updates right away.
Yeah,
and
this is just a feature like the hot refresh. This is what it's called, and it's a feature that Vite JS library has.
Where can people learn more about that, by the way?
Sorry?
Library. That library?
Yeah, it's a big thing because like there were a lot of ways to create a project, and for example, one of the most popular ones was the CRA, so Create React App, and for Vue.js there was something similar, but in like less than a year, every framework just went to Vite because it's like the bare bones fundamentals to get started, and then you can just select what you want. So for us, because we don't want like the whole React library just for a single web viewer, this is the best thing because it's lean. It only comes with a local server and a way to package all that project in one HTML blob. So for us, it's the thing because you don't need to know a lot of things. You just have a local server to work with a hot refresh, and just one terminal command to build the whole thing in one HTML blob. Yeah, so it's I think like the other thing. So, for example, Geist has presented that way of updating the web viewer HTML field with a data file approach. Whereas in our case, because we have like multiple FileMaker projects that share the same web viewer, we have created a way with an OData call. So you pass like whenever this is changed, you have to update it in 10 FileMaker files. So we give like an array of OData information, and then when you run FM deploy, it's going to go to hit with OData all those servers and update the HTML. So it's great if you don't need to change the script. As well. So it's the fact that it's portable, and you can have you can extend the pool of resources, like have not just FileMaker developers, but get web developers as well, without having to know FileMaker. Also
just give them give them JSON data that they can read and write to.
Exactly. So Josh is a great guy in our FileMaker community. He gave us FM Gopher and FM Mock. So one of the things
you mentioned that.
So one of the things we discussed was using FM Mock. You can you can have a JSON of what the script would return, and then a web developer can use FM Mock and not even have FileMaker in their setup.
Wow,
so
you
can have like a web developer work your widgets, but don't have to explain what is FileMaker.
Those tools are new to me, so I'm going to be looking at those up.
They are new. No, they're.
Oh, they're brand new anyway.
Yeah, they're new anyway. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Maybe everybody then.
Yeah, it's for everybody.
Okay,
yeah.
cool.
So we have great tools, and we have like the WebRTC thing. That just
Yes, that's new in 2024.
Yeah.
Real-time
real-time. Yeah.
communication, real-time.
Yeah, I don't know, but essentially you can like screen share in FileMaker. You can
Yeah, you can have two FileMaker users set up like a video chat and be able to integrate that directly into a web viewer, which is new.
Yeah, so it's a great time to start learning JavaScript fundamentals, like just the fundamental. The fundamentals, just to understand at high level what it's doing, so you can give the narrative to ChatGPT and it can create. It takes a lot of effort to learn prompting and JavaScript, but you can definitely get there
Yeah.
and get your reward for doing so.
That sounds great. When are you going to come visit me in Crete?
In Crete, yeah,
No?
I would love to. No, it's just like I just became a dad, as you know. And, yeah, and it's
Congrats, that's right, I do remember.
yeah, thank you. So it's I'll come. I'll take my chances with
It'll
my
be,
wife, and
It'll be easier for me to come to Thessaloniki, and I haven't been there yet. So
Yeah.
I've been to Athens several times, but
Okay,
that's a
you
totally
should-
different vibe, I think. There.
yeah, you should come. You should come.
All right, thanks very much, Stathis.
Thank you, Matt. It was great having you.
Yeah, good to talk to you too. Continuing our .fmp. Chris Moyer, welcome, sir.
Thank you.
So, what do you have to tell us? So let's see, you did 2 sessions? 1 session?
1.5. Well, I guess I
Yeah.
did do 2 sessions. I had originally booked a session on day 1, and then
They moved
got
it.
smoked,
Yeah.
and so there were only half-hour segments left
Yeah.
of what was an hour presentation. So I split it in 2.
The one that I want to talk with you about, and then I want to talk about AI stuff as well. So, because is you talked about a concept of having a FileMaker solution that's always up. So basically,
Yes.
yeah. So like it would support a 24-hour operation with no downtime, like in a manufacturing.
Yeah, the use case was we have a manufacturing client who has stuff coming off the line constantly. They have full traceability, so each one of these things is essentially serialized. So if anything goes wrong with it, they can say where were the materials for it sourced.
Yeah, every 15 seconds, records get created, kind of
Yeah,
thing, 24 hours a day.
super frequently. And so the internal FileMaker team thought they were doing great by only having an outage of like 20 minutes at midnight on a Saturday night, but that was killing the production people. And so they wanted it to be up all the time, and they asked the question, is there any way to make it up all the time? And so that was my proof of concept of how you could do something like that.
Yep. I'm going to outline it.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay, so let's see, requires a separation model.
It does.
I'm a fan.
I've never been a fan, but it's perfect for this application.
Yeah, I'm a fan because it's so, the extra work to do is so slight. There is authentication issues.
Yes.
Because you have to have accounts in both files.
Yep.
But the data file can be online. So basically with this method, the data file is always up on
Yeah.
FileMaker server. And so that is the live one.
Yes.
So if you need to make a field, you would go into that one.
And that is an imperfection of this technique,
Right.
is that if you have schema changes, then you have to deal with stuff. And so,
Yeah, but I'll editorialize because I really want to do that in your session.
okay, go ahead.
I think the more experienced you get as a developer, the less you rely on schema changes. And also, schema is 2 things. There's the relationship graph and
Right.
like what supports the interface, and then there's like the existence of tables and fields.
Right.
So if you, in the separation model, if you do this method on your dev and user testing, if you need to make a field or a table, make it in the data file first. And then once it's committed, because no user's locking it, then you can make that exact same change in the dev, and then they're perfectly in sync. The invisible IDs of the tables and fields are in sync.
Yeah.
But if you don't do it that way, then you're going to get out of sync, and then you're going to have problems because the invisible links are going to break.
Right.
So that's kind of step 1. And then your data file is just always up. The thing I loved about your solution is you have interface files, and of course with the separation model, you can have multiple interface files connecting to the data
Yep.
at the same time.
Yep.
So you post a new version. I'm going to just give the whole thing away.
By
aren't I?
host, I mean host.
So you have 2 copies of the interface file, different versions, different code bases,
Right.
after
One
it's tested.
is deprecated and is on its way out,
Right.
but people are in it still.
Exactly.
And one is incoming and is the new version that we're deploying.
Yeah, database v1, database v2.
Yeah.
Okay, and then they're both live, and then you have a launcher file so that when a user first logs in, it connects to whatever the current one is using a variable name as the
Yeah,
file
all
reference.
the tiers of the layer cake are invisible to the user. They just see this front door, which is the launcher file that says,
Right.
solution name. And so when they log into that, it knows which version of the UI file to route them to and routes them accordingly.
Exactly. So then, over time, if you just do it that way, you're going to have all the users are going to be off of the old interface file, and you could take it offline, and they'd be on the new one.
Yeah.
And that way, you could just that way you could actually continually do it. But the magic that you had was ideas of how to take care of it. If a user was live, they were actually in the interface file, and they didn't close it because they're just keeping that file open 24/7.
Right.
And then you wanted to upgrade them to the new
Yeah.
interface
Force
file.
them into the new file.
Yeah, I'm going to have you describe that one because I didn't really.
Yeah, so I actually have a subscript that is just called sub file management, and it has two branches. One branch is where we've noticed that, so at the top of the file or top of the script, it checks to say, hey, are we in the right UI file, yes or no? And if the answer is no, it says, we need to move. And so it packs up all the context into a JSON string. And so what table you're on, layout objects, what record ID we're sitting on, all that stuff.
Yeah.
And any sort of environment variables that you might use to manage a navigation
Sound set,
system or
sure.
current logged in user, all that stuff. Grabs it all, packages it up, and then because it's just read what the new file being deployed is, it sticks that into a global variable and then evaluates new file as a external file reference, which has as its pointer this global variable. And
Okay.
so whatever that file name is, it just sends it over, basically throws it over the wall with that parameter. And it sends it to that same file management script in the other file.
The launcher
with-
file?
No, in the UI file.
Oh, okay.
And the UI file reads it and notes that there is a parameter, which means it's getting handed off to, not that it's just checking the state of the union. And so once it sees that, it says, we're newly arrived from the old file. And so it basically unpacks all that context information, puts the user onto the right layout and record ID and all that good stuff, and just drops them in there. And it happens.
And closes the previous version.
And closes the previous version.
That's-
And this
yeah.
all happens in a split second. And so to the user, it's undetectable. And I've tied it into basically any sort of user event they might do. If they push a button, if they navigate from screen to screen, if they delete a portal row, any of those things would trigger this operation to say, hey, are we in the right place?
Yeah.
And then it just happens. And, the demo has the file name embedded in the bottom of the layout as a merge variable, basically. And so you
I'll
can
ask
see it happen in real time.
Yeah,
It's very
I
quick.
saw it in the demo, yeah. Question for the podcast viewers, listeners. Have you seen something like this? Have you used parts of this in practice? Because we both love to know. I'd love to know.
Yeah, sounds good.
So have you got this in testing anywhere other than your
No,
demos?
I just recently showed it to the client who asked about it, and they
And they're like,
liked
yes,
what they
I
saw.
want
Yeah.
this.
So I mean, there's a couple issues. Schema being the chief one. So the relationship graph, not a problem, because the graph, for all intents and purposes, is really important in the UI file, which is going to be redeployed
That's
anyway.
where it
so
lives.
That's trivial. So it really comes down to adding new fields or adding new tables. I'm a bit of a risk taker in that if I'm making a brand new piece of functionality that requires a new table, I'll shove it into live, and it doesn't
Absolutely.
hurt anything
Nope.
because there's no table locking. No one's on that table yet.
Yep.
That's not
Adding a
entirely
new field
risk-free,
is a different
but-
thing.
But I've not
Indexing
had
a
problems
field's a
with it,
different
yeah.
thing. But yeah. So I actually, in the public health database I worked on for 10 years, we used a separation model. And we used the exact same process I'm talking about where we created fields in the live data file and then made them in the dev. And that worked and works extremely well.
Yeah.
And they had, like at the peak, I don't know if they really made changes of it during this time, but the peak of COVID, which is the COVID tracking database, I think there was 1,300 users connected at the same time.
Yeah.
By the way, that breaks. So that's a limit we found. It, a query that normally took a millisecond or a few milliseconds took 30 seconds. It was like, no.
Wow.
So that's the limit of a very complex solution. So a simpler solution may handle that. So I would think that a first step to get to this, crazy idea,
Updatability.
would be to when it senses there's a new version of the interface, rather than doing this whole package of everything up, it just says, oh, there's an upgrade that's happened. Do you want to do it now? And
Right.
then it returns to the menu without packaging everything up.
Yeah.
Opens up the new interface, closes the old one, and then their session sort of starts over. But they're logged in as themselves.
Yes, that's it. And I think you and maybe another person in the session suggested that, say, rather than do all this, song and dance, why not just tell them, hey, there's a new version, do it.
It happens to one user at a time, right? So the thing is still up 24/7. The
Yeah.
user can choose to upgrade or not.
Yeah. And then as soon as everybody's out of the deprecate version, then you just unhost it, and the only option available is the live one.
That's a
But
simpler.
I think that would be fine if it was not an urgent fix. So if you had some sort of emergency situation, like, oh, we discovered a critical bug and it's
Right.
actually destroying data, we got to get people out of this thing.
Right.
I would want to force them rather than say, oh, whenever you're ready, go ahead
Yeah.
and leave. But
I mean,
I think
if you had
it would
something
be
like
nice
that-
to have control, and that could just be a flag that you set and say urgent release, or at whenever is convenient. And you could just have it behave in either way.
If you have an urgent release, wouldn't you just patch the script steps in the live system, old version, right then?
Yeah, I probably would. If it was that critical.
Yeah, like,
slam
you
it in
can't-
there.
Yeah, scripts are also serialized invisibly.
Yeah.
So what you need to do is open up the script, delete all the script steps, paste the correct script steps, and save it. That works just
Yeah.
fine. And then when it's saved, the users load the
Yeah.
new version. I also love doing that in a subscript. We're going to nerd out a second. Like if you have script A, call script B as a loop. While you're running the loop, if you change the subscript, it'll change in the middle of the loop running, even if users are running it, because it calls it new every single time.
Yeah.
It's great for debugging.
That's fun.
Okay, let's move off of this and talk about AI stuff.
Okay.
I just saw Heidi's presentation, which was amazing.
Yeah, that's good.
I feel really dumb. I really have a lot to learn.
By the way, Fabrice also did a presentation this morning, and he's got a new implementation of his logging stuff that allows you to do replays. So if you have mirrored files, you send a log to a centralized log, and it says, there's something that I need to apply to the mirror, and it can replay the data inputs.
Wow.
As a complete transaction.
Wow.
And so something
like
like
roll
that,
back, roll forward kind of a thing?
roll forward, exactly. And
Okay.
so his implementation would probably fix the schema issue that we were talking about.
That's
Is
true.
If we have to migrate between two data files, he could
Yeah.
do the replay. It's like, here's everything that we've gathered
Wow,
up that
yeah.
you don't have yet. Boom.
He called it FM log something. And
Yeah.
I have something called FM log, so I have to.
Perfect.
Well, his is.
You guys can have fisticuffs.
No. I think his is a very different problem. My
Yes.
FM log is something I wrote to be implemented extremely simply and to be a natural language log where you can see exactly what's going on. It's
Yeah.
designed for users to read. It
Right.
doesn't, and you have to implement it at the UI level.
Yeah.
So you have
Yeah,
to
his
attach
is
it to a
much
field or
more-
put it in a script. His is a root level thing,
Yeah.
which is powered now by the new trigger that came out a few versions ago. Okay. So
AI.
AI.
Sorry, I rudely interrupted you.
no, I rudely interrupted you. So where are you guys at with that? Like
With AI?
cutting edge stuff.
So I mean,
implementation?
we had this discussion this morning, but it's moving so fast that, and people have built stuff on this, and then OpenAI says, we're deprecating that one. You're going to have to move to a new version, or all your stuff breaks. Ian has been working on stuff for processing meeting notes and stuff like that. So you feed the video, and it sort of itemizes everything that was discussed. And
Ian's presentation was amazing.
yeah, and so he's been working on this for like 2 years, and over again he'd be, come up with a successful build, and then the landscape changes and everything of his stuff breaks. And so I'm very conscious of, because this is a fast-moving technology in space, that if you are relying on APIs, there's no permanence to the thing at all, and so you're likely to have your stuff deprecated before you can even put it into production, or shortly after. And so
I don't see the problem with that.
well, to me, the only solution is to run your LLMs locally. It solves a bunch of problems. You're not sending potentially confidential customer data up to, OpenAI or
Yep.
Anthropic or whoever you decide to use.
Yeah.
And
So locally, well, on your own server that you control in the cloud, maybe.
right, yeah, it
Yeah.
could be a virtual private cloud, and that's fine too. Whatever the limits of your sandbox are, keep it inside those. But so it solves that issue, and then the other issue it solves is if they do decide to deprecate a product and say we're not going to support this anymore, they can't just rug pull you. If you're running it locally, you're the only one who gets to control that. So you have, you know, the time and the ability to plan for sort of a more graceful transition to whatever comes next. So I think those two things are hugely important, and to me it makes it the case that the only way to do this is to run it in your own infrastructure.
I have to say, I hadn't really thought about how quickly things would get deprecated, but that does make sense.
Yeah,
because it is
it's
so
a big
fast
problem.
moving.
Ian's been hit over and over.
Yeah, the thing that's been interesting in the whole AI space is
Ian Jemison, by the way.
Yeah, that's good to know. Jempsoniain.
Owen.
Iaion.
Jempson.
Oh yes, but I'm okay. And then I went to his first name spelling.
Ian, I'm sorry.
But
IAN, yes.
IAN, okay, not IAIN, which is what I thought it was.
Yeah.
Okay, let's see. Where was I going with all of that?
I don't
it's
know.
Such a, oh yeah, I remember now. Okay, what I've observed, especially at this conference, is there's a whole bunch of FileMaker developers that have actually been interested in AI for years.
Yeah.
Or they have, that was their like study before they were a FileMaker developer, and they're coming at this with 5-8 years of experience and deep understanding of it, and then contributing that knowledge to the community.
Yeah.
It's really, really cool.
Yeah. No, Yoris
surprising.
Arts was doing machine learning stuff with an ML company called Clarify years
Yes,
ago.
actually we had him on the podcast talking about it.
Way back when. So yeah, he's been at this for a long time, and Ian's actually, I think he did his graduate thesis on this stuff, so he's all over it. Yeah, there's a ton of people with deep expertise in this area, so it's great to have you in the community.
Mm-hmm. Thanks for your time, sir.
My pleasure. See you, podcast people.
I have with me, as you can see, Vincenzo Menanno.
Hola.
Hola.
Or Guten Tag.
Guten Tag?
Guten
That's
Tag.
better, yeah.
Yes.
So, conference is done.
Yep.
Your 8 sessions that you gave are done. It seems like you gave like 3.
No, I gave like 3, I think.
Yeah.
So, yes, it's done.
Yeah, done.
Done.
So, obviously a lot of AI stuff, but
Yep.
we've talked a couple times about the upcoming version of Inspector, and which I'm not sure if we mentioned it before, but it's kind of contingent on a significant change that happened that just shipped in the new version of FileMaker.
Yeah.
Let's talk a little bit about that, and then what Inspector's going to do.
Okay, so first off, we were waiting for a lot of the fixes in the XML.
Yes.
So those are rolled into this release
Mm-hmm.
that just happened on Tuesday of this
Yep.
week. And so this is the first time ever we announced on the same day that they shipped. So we never did that before, but we had it ready, and we were just waiting. So the Mac version is now shipping
Wow.
and selling,
Okay.
and now we're in the process. The Linux version was almost ready, so we needed a little bit more time to test it. It's working. We're testing it, and that should be ready very soon.
So that's the running on a Mac server?
Yeah, running on. Well, you can run it locally.
Okay.
You can run it locally, or you can run it on a server. However, I will say that running it locally, we haven't really ironed out the user experience. Plus, it runs, so as it's processing, you can't do anything.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
the
yeah.
best user experience is host it. Even if you buy a single user license,
Yeah,
host
host
it
it.
on a server, and then you add the integration, and then it just runs on the server, and then you can get back to work like right away.
Yeah.
So,
So Windows Server?
no, not yet.
Okay.
So Mac, Linux, Windows,
Okay.
that order. So Linux is next, and then Windows is going to be after that.
Okay.
So we'll have all the platforms.
Yeah, okay. So, of course, talking about the server side, we have to sort of back up a little bit so people can know why the server side is important and how this is completely different than the way these analysis tools have worked.
Well, at least for us, in the past, we used the DDR.
Right.
And the DDR is not scriptable and it's not server compatible. You don't have a
Right.
script step to generate a DDR.
Right.
So you'd have to generate a DDR in a file that's open, and then generating the DDR when it's hosted takes more time because it's pulling down the XML and saving it locally, and then you have to resend it to the server.
Yeah, I don't know, maybe 5 minutes it takes for me to do it on my solution, something like that.
Yeah, so you want to, and now we're stepping into a brand new architecture with 8, which is we switched over to save as XML.
Yes.
Save a copy as XML,
Right, yeah.
to be exact. And with that, it's scriptable, server compatible. It's a script step,
Big.
and it's server compatible,
Yeah.
which means that your solution can, with our integration, you can. It's an add-on. You just add it, and then you call that script. It'll run PSOS, deploy, generate the XML, and then hand it off to inspector.
Right.
So before, download the XML, send the XML
Yep.
back. All that's wasted
Yeah,
time. Now it's just run it, and as soon as you fire off that script, like literally, the longest time is the time it takes for you to type the message that you want to,
Yeah,
Otherwise, you can invoke it by holding the Option key down, and it runs right away. You can get back
Yeah,
to work.
okay.
That was
So can it be run on a scheduled script on the server? Is that the ideal way?
Yeah, that's another way you can do it. So the user doesn't have to have inspector open, and in either case, they still don't need to have inspector open because the integration works with the copy of inspector that's hosted.
Got it.
And so you could write a schedule, and that schedule could run at whatever frequency you like. It
Right.
could be 1 minute, 5 minutes, 10 minutes, an hour.
Yeah. Okay, so I'll say a little bit about how I understand it works, and you can
Yep.
correct me and then fill in a lot more details.
Yep.
So the key thing that makes this awesome is the differentiation between versions. One of the two things I think that are really, for me, the killer features. So when you do the XML, save a copy as XML, correct you, it compares that to the previous XML, and then only really puts the changes in inspector. It highlights the things that have changed,
Yes.
and who did it
Yeah.
is the other, I think, killer feature.
Yeah.
Which it can know if people comment. I don't know.
If people what?
Comment the scripts.
Yeah. I mean, you have that way of tracking percent of comments, percent of white space, and all that. But
Yeah.
but
But it tracks things
script-
like, oh, a new field was made, a new table was made, a field name was changed.
That's attribution to whoever made those changes. You'll get username, account name, timestamp, and modification count. But you'll get that in most places, not everywhere,
Yeah.
unfortunately. But
Okay.
you're right about the way it's doing it. So
Okay.
prior to 8, what we had was generate the DDR and gobble it all up. Then generate it again and gobble it all up. After 100 analyses, if you compare 7 to 8, you're going to have a file that's going to be gigabytes in size, and it's going to be slower to process because it's
Yep.
got millions
Comparing
of
it
records.
to all the other stuff,
Yeah, it's got millions of records for everything. 8 gobbles up the XML for the first analysis.
Yep.
Every other analysis, it just finds a way to scan the items and says,
Yeah.
oh, this change, that change, document it, done.
Yeah. I said differentiation, but I think delta is the right word.
Yeah, like
Delta.
the changes as you progress, right?
Yes.
So you won't be able to say analysis 5. I want to compare analysis 5 to analysis 10. You won't be able to do that because
Okay.
it's only documenting the changes as they happen. So
Right.
what you're looking at in Inspector, whatever the last analysis is, you're looking at the current state of whatever the last analysis is.
Okay.
So if you run it like just 2 seconds ago, that's the current state of your database. That's what's in Inspector. If you're refactoring, the footprint gets smaller. If you're adding code, it's going to get bigger, but it's going to be 1-to-1 with what's
Right,
in your
right, right.
system.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I've been waiting for this to ship, so I'm still going to buy this right away.
Cool. As you know, you're doing a lot of AI stuff, right?
Yes.
So we added with Inspector 8. We dabbled with AI a little bit.
That wasn't my next question. But
Oh, okay. So sorry, but what I wanted to say is, we're learning it. It's learning as
Sure,
you go,
sure.
right? And what we added was a summarization of the script. So you have a short summary and you have a longer summary. And I will say, in the experimentation that we've been doing and learning, is if you add comments above certain sections, the AI seems to treat that as like, oh, that's almost like what does it call it, markdown? Like, okay, that's a
Oh,
section.
interesting.
Yeah, so like
Okay.
it gets hints and helpful guidance in terms of how to write out a summary. But if
Yeah,
you don't
yeah.
have that, it still does an
Yeah.
okay job.
What monster would write a script without lots of comments in it?
I don't know. I don't know.
Actually, the one who's doing it for themselves, who understands what it is.
Yeah.
It's been really interesting to watch my programming styles change. We were talking a little bit ago, like you're at the point now where you don't do coding.
Right.
And I'm at I love where I am right now, coding all day, every day. And so I've looked back at how I've changed, and I write a lot more comments than I probably ever did.
It's interesting because I gave a presentation here. I don't know if you saw it, the one on technical debt.
I did not.
Technical debt or technical death, as I like to refer to it.
Yeah.
And one thing that's a big inspiration for me on our team, Steve Senfit Herrera. One of the things that he pointed out in one of the discussions we had internally was that when he writes code, like normally people write code and they look at code and they say, I want this to work. I want this to work. Or, and I want to make sure it doesn't fail or whatever.
Sure.
Their attention is on the working part. But Steve pointed out that like what normally like his attention is and what he encourages people to have attention on is how can I make this so that you can understand it? Who comes after me can understand it, right? And so that's so important.
Yeah. Or also be kind to your future self.
Yeah.
Like when you look at something 3 years later, what are you going to...
Absolutely.
Yeah. I totally agree with that. Yeah. So I think there's kind of some levels, right?
Yeah.
I want it to work.
Yep.
And I think probably be understandable maybe before that.
Yep.
And then I want it to be bulletproof, lots of error trapping.
Yep.
And then I want it to be fast.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anything else?
That's an excellent place to end. We talk a lot.
Well, I'll say one more thing.
Okay, yeah,
I'll
one
say
more
if I
thing.
can. Because I wanted to tag on the AI thing because we actually ended up using perform semantic find. Because when we had that summary, what we then did was we generated an embedding with the summary.
Yes.
And now you can semantically search for the meaning of your scripts. It's like, you know, you have a script that is 300 lines of code.
Yeah.
It creates user accounts or whatever.
Sure.
You can say, find me a script that deals with account management or something like that. It will infer, you know, again, semantically find the scripts with that meaning.
So like, so if, here's my use case for that, right?
Yeah.
So if a developer's coming into a really large project and they want to reuse code because, again, we're not monsters.
Right.
They could query the database to find what solves this problem.
Right.
And then go look at that script and understand it and then reuse the code. Or just call it, black box it.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, oh
exactly.
man, I'm excited.
Yeah, there's more, with Later Foundation, there's more to come. So.
Enzo, thank you very much.
You're very welcome, Matt. Take care. See you.
We're really glad to have Egbert, the founder and organizer of this conference.
Hello, guys and girls.
So this particular one, we're not able to do video, so this will be audio, obviously. So I first wanted to say thank you so much for this conference. This was my first time of attending this, and I didn't know it was also going to be my last time.
Yeah, see, that is what I wrote during my announcements. Sign up or you will feel sorry. And you were the lucky ones who signed up and joined us. And I was a bit... I hesitated to announce that up front because the character of the event itself is just... It doesn't work when there are too many people here. And I also would like to say thank you to all those people who made it, who shaped the event in the past.
This is 12 years running?
It's 12. Yeah, well, no, actually, I'm a bit bad at math. It's zero-based. It started in 13.
Okay.
And we are 24 now, so actually it is 11 years, but it's the 12th edition or 12th event as such. And yeah, if you go with zero-based, it's...
Makes sense.
Is it? Anyway, yeah.
So this FileMaker users are used to this because we started counting at 1, and now with Jason we have to start counting at 0.
Yes, exactly. That is.
So we don't need to dwell on like that. I think I just feel very fortunate to have been here. The conference was amazing. All the different sessions. It's very technical. Do you aim at actually making it very high-end technical sessions?
For me, it was always the highest goal, or to provide a frame, a space where people feel kind of encouraged or challenged to share their inner secret, or their secrets, or their the best kept information they wouldn't share anywhere else. And I can say I feel kind of lucky that I achieved that at some point.
Oh yeah, big time.
Yes, that some people came here to share things and haven't seen all the other colleagues as competitors, but as sources, friends, made friends that the spirit came up that they want to share their things. And I personally, of course, asked some people to present something, or I asked others, whom do you want to see? So I especially invited them, and luckily some people followed my invitation.
Yeah.
But in the end, I didn't set any goals or any levels, but it was from the beginning I was asking higher level developers, senior developers, or people who've been on the scene for a longer time.
Yeah.
Do you find that type of event interesting? Would you join us for an attempt or a try?
Yeah.
So.
I'll give you a compliment. I've been going to conferences since the beginning. I've been a FileMaker developer since the beginning, and as a result, I sometimes go to conferences and don't really learn anything, because the sessions are kind of where they are. I learned a lot here in the last 2 days.
Yeah, but that is where the thank you doesn't go to me, but to all these bright minds.
You brought them together.
Okay, that's true. That's true. But I always aim to encourage them. I never said, come up and you have to do the session when you come, and come on, talk about this or that.
Yeah.
But I asked the people to join and just be open.
Yeah.
Not only in that you feel kind of forced to have to present something, but also that when someone else is coming and showing you their secrets or their whatever business structure they wouldn't share somewhere else. So the spirit raised, and I have to say I'm quite fortunate.
Yeah.
And to be honest, no.
Well, you know what else you got really, really lucky about? The new version of FileMaker 2024 shipped, a day or two before the conference?
Yeah, it was very expensive. Now, can't I say this? Expensive to ask Claris
to change the release date?
Yes. No, disclaimer. I haven't discussed it with Claris at all.
Obviously. So what I loved about that was there was all these sessions that couldn't talk about the unreleased version.
Yeah.
And then the day that it shipped, all the discussion, all the sessions were updated. That made me so happy.
Yeah, luckily some of the attendees are in the ETS and they know the product from a little bit before, but of course it would have been much easier and much less stressful for all these people to to come with when they know the solution or the version will be released shortly before.
We did see ETS of Claris Studio this time, but not any ETS or discussion really of any future versions of FileMaker since one was so fresh.
Yeah, well, to be honest, I was in the ETS for a while, but I never really took this into account. But of course, it's obvious, and also fortunately, my event was always the first after any version of Claris was released.
Oh,
they mostly released it in April or May, or this time June. But my event was always the first one. That's
fortunate.
Yeah, I'm happy with, and I also saw that some people they met here or talked about here, they could use this as the base for their presentation on other conferences.
Yeah. Egbert, what's next for you?
Sleeping.
Well, that's for today, for this week. But what are your next goals in life and career? You're 36 years old. You're not going to retire.
Yeah. No, we have other rules in Germany. I can retire right now from 36. No, to be honest, I can't say anything.
Are you really 36? Did I guess that right?
See, my face surgery worked. No, kidding. I didn't have any face surgery. Disclaimer: I didn't have any. No. I can't say anything. It was what I can say is it was really, really a great ride, and I'm so immensely grateful for all these bright minds who made the effort to come to Berlin.
Yeah.
And to share, not only to come, as you say, to conferences and sit down and pay the ticket, sit down and get served, but to come and bring their knowledge and their openness to share. And that was a long and really, can I say, joyful?
Yeah.
Ride. So I feel grateful for that, and let's sink it in, and then we will see.
Yeah. Thank you so much for your time and for this conference.
It was my pleasure that you came, and that all the other people came. And I wish all those who listen stay tuned with Matt and his podcast.
Yep.
It's always
Thanks.
works. Thank you.
Thank you.